Spread out a little bit.
Well, it's about
all right. Is Brandon here?
Yeah.
Well, I think we've got everybody. Thank you all for coming this morning. Look, before we get started, I think I can speak for my fellow Texans. We have the utmost respect for those in law enforcement and the Border Patrol agents that defend our sovereign border and protect our fellow citizens. We thank God for them, for their courage, for their duty to country, to their sacrifice. And, you know, we're reminded, sadly enough, yesterday we lost another Border Patrol agent in the line of duty. And this is a father of 2 children. And these guys aren't getting any help. In fact, this self-inflicted crisis has made their job all the more dangerous. And so, anyway, our hearts go out to you and your colleagues in the wake of this tremendous loss. The gentleman was on patrol in the McAllen sector and was running down a group of illegal immigrants, and they found him unresponsive. But this happens, and it's happening too often. On behalf of the Texas delegation, let me say what a profound honor and privilege it is to represent the great state of Texas and to be the voice for the God-fearing, freedom-loving people of the Lone Star State. We have a responsibility as the Texas delegation to represent the spirit of Texas, which is one that runs to the fight, always fighting for what is right and never giving up. That is the sacred duty, and that is the spirit with which we stand here today and with which we develop this framework by Texans, for Texas, to secure our southern border. And as important as the policies and strategies in this Texas border plan is our pledge to do everything in our power to make them a reality. It's important to note that this framework is consistent and in support of House Republicans' commitment to America, to create a nation that is safe. What's happening at our southern border, this unprecedented humanitarian and security crisis, the record number of people, drugs, crime, and gangs pouring into our communities is a disgrace and completely unacceptable. And with this new Republican majority in the House, our Texas delegation is committed to using every tool and authority at our disposal to hold President Biden, Secretary Mayorkas, and this entire administration accountable for their dereliction of duty, to support our state leaders in their efforts to defend Texas in the face of this clear and imminent danger, and to put the policies in this framework into place that will protect our citizens and secure our sovereign border. This is our commitment to America. This is our plan for Texas. And this is our solemn pledge to our fellow Texans. Now I'm going to ask the Dean of the Texas delegation, former Chairman of Ways and Means, Kevin Brady, to come up here. But in the interest of time, I know we have our former Homeland Security Chairman, Michael McCall, who's got to leave early. So I'm going to ask our future Chairman of Foreign Affairs, former Chairman Homeland Security, and my dear friend and great Texan, Michael McCall, to come up and say a few words.
Thank you, Jody. And I want to thank the delegation. And I want to thank Chip Roy, who spearheaded this border bill that's Texas style. We know this border better than anybody. We live it. Myra Flores lives it. her husband a Border Patrol agent. And they say every state's a border state. I don't think so. We get overrun every day by the cartels, the criminals, the drugs, the fentanyls, the human trafficking. I was the chief of counterterrorism and national security in the state of Texas, U.S. attorney for many years after 9/11, and I saw the threats coming in, but I've never seen it this bad. The chaos, the wide open border, bringing in so many fentanyls. 80,000 children have died this year. That's more than the people who died in Vietnam over 2 decades, to put it in perspective. Biggest human trafficking event of my lifetime. It's disgraceful. It didn't have to happen. It was a self-inflicted wound. On day one, President Biden rescinded Remain in Mexico, a policy that I worked with the Trump administration to stop this crisis at our border. And you know what? The migrant protection protocols worked. It was working. And just because it had Trump's name on it, they rescinded it on day one. Cartels know that, and now they have operational control of the border. How sad is that? I'm going to do everything in my power. You know, I chaired Homeland for 3 terms. We're hopeful we'll have another Texan chairing Homeland Security Committee. And in my role on the Foreign Affairs Committee, I'm going to go down to Mexico and Central America and talk about political asylum agreements, remain in country, because once they get in country, in the United States, it's catch and release. We release them into the streets and we lose them. Almost 5 million. What in the world are we going to do with people, 5 million people that have no legal status in this country? And people are dying, and our state knows it best. So I know we have a lot of speakers, but from my heart, I've lived this life along with John Carter and Kay Granger and Chip Roy and so many others. And we finally got it fixed, and it's so sad to see it broken again. But you know what? In the new majority, we're going to fix it once and for all. And so with that, I'd like to yield to the author of the bill. Oh, I'm sorry, the dean of the delegation, my dear friend, Mr. Kevin Brady.
Thank you, Michael. So this morning, as we gather, there are 300,000 young Texans in the sex slave industry in our state. 300,000 young people. Because of this open borders policy, they are in a life that is just a living hell. No state pays a steeper price for these open borders than our state. This is a security crisis. It's a humanitarian crisis. It's a sex trafficking crisis. It is a fentanyl crisis. And no delegation in Congress has more expertise and better solutions to address this border crisis than here in the Texas Delegation. And it's because our communities live this and they pay the price. So this border plan is our part of the commitment to America to make our nation safe. It reflects the ideas and solutions of our entire delegation, the expertise, the awareness, the ability to execute a border security plan. I'm really proud of the ideas that are in this plan, but I'm especially proud of the work, obviously Jodey Arrington, thank you, but Congressman Chip Roy, Congressman Mike McCall from Homeland Security, Dr. Brian Babin, who's led the Border Security Task Force, Dan Crenshaw, those of our members on the border throughout West Texas in every corner who've come together on this border plan. This is the Republican commitment from Texas in this new Congress to make America safe and make Texas safe by securing our border. Thank you.
So the the guy that did the yeoman's work and had the pen, I guess you could say the Thomas Jefferson of our Texas border plan, Chip Roy, please come up and say a few words.
Well, thanks, Jody. Thanks, Kevin, Michael, and thanks to all of my colleagues here in the Texas delegation, both current and future. We're here, as my colleagues have stated, because of the crisis that we're experiencing in Texas. And it is a crisis, but it's a human crisis. I would just ask all of you in the media, whatever outlet you're with, these are human beings. These are our fellow Texans, fellow Americans, but also migrants who seek to come to the United States, being exploited for crass political purposes. 53 human beings who cooked in a tractor trailer in San Antonio, which I'm proud to represent. As Kevin Brady just talked about, children, little girls, little boys being sold into the sex trafficking trade. In what world is this somehow compassionate? It's not. This is destroying lives. It's destroying American lives. It's empowering cartels. It's empowering China. It's destroying the economies and the societies of our neighbors to the south because we're not working together to export the rule of law and have a strong Western Hemisphere rather than importing lawlessness and importing fentanyl that's killing our children and destroying our communities. Go talk to the moms, like the families in my own district who have lost children to fentanyl, the 72,000 who died from fentanyl last year. This is real. This is in real time. This is not politics. While the president dismisses this as unimportant, we're all here to say it's critically important. But importantly, that we have solutions, that we know the solutions as Texans. We know what to do. We've laid out a plan. We're distributing that plan. We have to have infrastructure at the border. And not just the wall. We need the wall, but we need to clear cane. We need to have roads for Border Patrol to be able to move up and down the border and do their job. Have you been along the Rio Grande? Have you gone down? Have you seen what these guys have to deal with every single day to be able to do their job? And God bless the family of Raul Gonzalez. Please pass along our condolences to his family. But that's the reality of every single day at the border. What's going to be the next one? And what are we going to do to stop that? We need to have physical infrastructure, but we need to enforce the policies of the United States and clean up the policies of the United States. And we've articulated those policies. You cannot encounter and release. You must be able to detain and or turn away in order to stop the flow that is devastating lives. That's how you actually secure a border, is to enforce those policies. You have to enforce the laws in the interior of the United States. And you have to target the cartels that are exploiting our laws and exploiting human beings for profit and endangering the American people in the process. This is not complex. It's actually pretty simple if we'll just do our job. I'm proud to stand alongside of all of these great Texans with a clear vision and a clear plan, and we're happy to sit down with anybody, anywhere, to talk about it. We'd invite the president to come down with us and come down to the border to see for himself, which he has refused to do. But we're not here to complain about what's going on, but to offer solutions that we know will work for the betterment of our country, our state, and to make sure that we're saving lives. And one last point. This is a moment for total solidarity among Texans here in Washington, in the leadership of the state of Texas, in the legislature in Texas, to commit to a singular purpose of ensuring that we secure the border of Texas and the United States for the betterment of our people that we represent. And I'm proud to stand here with these great Texans to do that. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Representative Roy, for artfully and elegantly stitching together the many initiatives that have been led by Texans for Texas. And now a man who needs no introduction, who's been a leader on this issue as in his capacity as chair of the Border Caucus from Texas District 36, our friend Brian Babin.
Thank you, Jody. Nobody knows what's going on any better than those of us who live in the great state of Texas. And first off, I want to say thank you to Chip for coming up with this great plan. I want to thank our Border Patrol people and just every one of my Texas delegation colleagues here. I'm very, very proud You couldn't ask for a better backup here. And I'm Brian Babin. I represent the 36th District in Texas. Even though it's up in near Houston and over to Louisiana, we have border problems. Every state, every county is a border state now. I'm thrilled to see so many members of the press here as well, because while Biden's border disaster is covered by some media outlets on a regular basis, it's outright ignored by most of the other media. So thank you for being here. My hope is for today that you will spread this truth far and wide about the horrors that the Biden administration has created on our southern border. And we all stand here together, unified, because nobody knows just how bad this mess really is, more so than we Texans. Our citizens don't feel safe because communities are no longer safe. Their lives and their property are under assault continually. Resources are being depleted. Hospitals overrun. People are dying from drug overdoses. The main reason for death of 18-year-olds to 45-year-olds is drug overdoses. The enormous majority of that coming across the border. Our valiant Texas guardsmen and troopers asked to carry, and our Border Patrol agents asked to carry an unimaginable burden. No matter how many times Secretary Mayorkas and Joe Biden repeat the lie, our border in Texas is simply not secure. The cold, hard truth is that if the Democrats in this administration have zero interest in stopping any of this, they also have zero interest in the security and safety of you, me, or anybody else, citizens of this great nation of ours. This is their crisis. They own it. And there's nothing humane and there's nothing compassionate about this situation. But we have solutions. We have a plan, the Texas Border Commitment, that we've all come up with. And that will serve as the framework for securing our border, protecting the American people, and preserving American sovereignty. The people of Texas are done with broken promises. They're done with a lack of action. They're done with their communities being torn apart. Enough is enough. Americans deserve action, and that's what we will deliver. We are drawing a line in the sand. Don't mess with Texas. Thank you.
And now from Congressional District 2 in the great state of Texas, a combat veteran and Navy SEAL, and the next chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, our friend Dan Crenshaw.
Jodey, Chip, first of all, thank you for showing leadership and bringing us all together on this. You know, we all heard this week when Joe Biden almost went to the border. He went to a border state in Arizona, and people asked why he wouldn't visit the border, and he said, well, there's more important things to do. And so we're all left wondering what's more important. Is our sovereignty as a nation not important? Is 80,000 deaths a year from fentanyl crisis not important? Is Raul Gonzalez and his 2 kids not important? And Border Patrol finds themselves asking, why is he even taking these risks? Why does Border Patrol go out day after day after day just to be nannies and bus drivers and babysitters, not able to actually do their jobs because this administration will not enforce the laws that are on the books? They don't seem to care about what Border Patrol goes through. They don't seem to care about what our border counties go through. According to Joe Biden, none of this is important enough. What is important is at least 8 public visits to get ice cream. That is apparently what this person prioritizes. And then they have the nerve to call situations like this, or when we go visit the border, they call them political stunts. They said the other day the Republicans have no plan, that they just want political stunts. Well, we have a plan. We have a very detailed plan. The Commitment to America is a very detailed plan. This is a very detailed plan. The Texas plan will work. It will fix our problem on the border. I can talk about just a few of the solutions that I put in personally that would fix this problem. It's fixing our asylum loopholes. We have legislation that would do that. It's fixing the flawed Flores case settlement. We have legislation that would do that. It's actually recognizing the threat posed by the cartels. We have legislation that recognizes that, Declaring War on the Cartels Act. We have legislation that would help boost Border Patrol morale by giving them retention bonuses and incentive pay to work in the harsh conditions that they're working on the southern border. We actually do have solutions that I would tell this administration that claims we do not. And they spit in our face. They spit in the face of the American people. They spit in the face of the Border Patrol agents that risk their lives every day by telling us that this is just a political stunt and that none of it matters. We say differently, and we have a very direct and simple plan to stop it. And I hope Democrats will work with us on that. I hope Democrats will recognize that we have a common enemy in the cartels that are flooding and lacing street drugs with fentanyl and poisoning Americans to the tune of nearly 80,000 dead per year. I hope they will. I'm going to get them to try. And I'm proud to stand with my Texas delegation to deliver that message. I'm also proud to stand with the men and women, representatives of the men and women who deal with our border crisis every day. Today we have with us Brandon Judd, my friend and patriot and president of the Border Patrol Council. Brandon, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
I'm not a Texan. Let me get that clear. Is that all right? I did live in Texas when I was a youth. So can I be an honorary Texan today? Sir. Is that all right? Okay. All right. My father was a police officer in Houston, Texas. So he did a tour in well, he was in El Paso, stationed in El Paso when he was in the military. So is that okay? All right. Good. But look, I wouldn't be here today if I did not believe that these people standing behind me today, these men and women, wanted to have an honest conversation, an open and honest conversation about what we're currently facing on the border. What we're seeing today on the border is anything that we would have never dreamed of. Ever would we have dreamed that it could have been as bad as it is today. And the problem is it's simple policies, programs, and operations that fix this crisis that we deal with. But this administration will not even define what we're currently seeing. They will not even say the word crisis. And if you're not willing to define an issue, you're never going to come up with the solutions that are presented here today. Congressman Crenshaw said it the best. They do have solutions. It's not a political stunt. What we want to see is we want to see a secure border. Because when we go out there every single day, all we want to do is protect our fellow citizens. When these individuals craft legislation, they're looking at protecting their fellow citizens. They're also looking at protecting the vulnerable women and children that are encouraged to put themselves in the hands of these dangerous cartels. These cartels rape and even at times murder these vulnerable individuals. Yet this administration continues to encourage them to put themselves in the hands of these cartels that are making billions of dollars on human misery. Whether that's sex trafficking, whether that's bringing drugs into the United States that are killing our youth, all of this is being driven by policies simply because this administration cares more about politics than it does doing its basic job of protecting U.S. citizens. Until we get beyond politics, until we're willing to have an honest conversation and talk about what can be done, what needs to be done, we will not get it done. For that reason, I'm very grateful. On behalf of the National Border Patrol Council, as the president of the National Border Patrol Council, I'm grateful for these individuals for doing everything that you're doing to try to protect my home state of Arizona, to protect Iowans, to protect Ohioans, to protect Alabamans, to protect everybody here in the United States, and of course, to protect your own constituents there in Texas. For that, I'm very grateful. Thank you.
We said we want to use and will use and are committed to using every tool and every authority at our disposal. One of those will be the power of the purse in this new majority. Next up, senior Texan in the delegation, Cardinal on the Appropriations Committee from Texas 31, Judge John Carter.
I am very proud to be here standing among my fellow Texans. We've had this crisis in our front yard now for almost decades. is now overwhelming us. I served as the chairman of the subcommittee of Homeland Security before I changed subcommittees after our term limit that we have, and now I serve on the military subcommittee. But I know this frontwards and backwards, and the truth is, the number one thing we got to fix is a loophole in the law. That's simple. As an old trial judge, having a district judge who's dealt with lawyers pretty well all my life, every lawyer's looking for a loophole to make his case better. Well, the loophole here is if you come across the border and you claim you have a credible fear that if you are returned to the country you come from, you qualify for our asylum laws. However, you get first met by a bureaucrat who releases everybody, but you're supposed to go before a judge. And most of those judges turn these people back. But the docket is 5 to 10 years behind. So we have to fix this. And there's no consequence of any nature for committing the fraud of claiming asylum when it's false. My part of the bill, I believe that punishment is required when you're breaking the law. My part of the bill would cause, if you committed this fraud, it would be punishable by a fine or imprisonment for up to 10 years for lying on an application for asylum. You get people's attention if you apply punishment. And that's what this is needed. And I also have language that helps plug that loophole. I think this is the most important single issue in our country today. And if we don't do the job it takes to be done and have the courage to stand up and do stuff that's not popular, we're going to be in trouble. I thank my colleagues. I thank all those people in Texas that are behind us. And let me tell you, don't mess with Texas.
So today's framework started with a conversation. We meet as a delegation every week. And a few months ago, the next and first female Republican chairwoman of the Appropriations Committee said, we've got to do more. We've got to do more, and we've got to unify as Texans, and as Texans we have to lead on this issue. And so I'm grateful for our friend from Texas 12, Chairwoman Kay Granger.
Thank you for that, but thank you for being here. Trust us, we've been there. Some of us have been there several times and seen it more and more and more. We see women come across the wall, it's not a wall, the place to get in, with a baby on her back. They're building places for them to stay, but they're sleeping on the ground. It's just, what's happened is, because nothing has happened, we've gone from last year 2.2 million migrant encounters, predicted this year 2.8 million. So you see what we're talking about. We've also traveled to countries where they're coming from and say, there's no place for them. What can you do? We just haven't done it. And we're all so stunned with this administration that's just saying, it's not important, we're not going to deal with it. We all have to deal with it. So thank you for being here and listening to what we have to say. We appreciate it very much because you can help us change this.
Our friend and next Small Business Committee Chairman from Texas 25, Roger Williams. And proud TCU Horned Frog.
Thank you, Jody. And invasion or ice cream? What's your choice? Well, I think it ought to be 2.3 million people crossed our border in fiscal year 2022 alone. Fentanyl, as we heard, is killing our young people at historic levels. We're losing generations of the future. and human traffickers have complete operational control of our border. Now, this will all worsen when Title 42 ends later this month with as many as 18,000 people a day crossing our border, and probably more. President Biden does not think our sovereignty, national security, and the safety of our communities is important. Well, Texans, as you've heard, have a very different message, and from day one of this administration, Texas, the great state of Texas, has done more to secure the border and support our men and women and Border Patrol than President Biden has done in 4 decades of his public service. And he's never been to the border, we might add and remember. Texans are fighting for a nation that is safe, and I'm honored to join my colleagues here today in letting the American people know we are committed. We're committed to securing the border, and we do have solutions. So I want to thank my colleagues. It's an honor to serve with all of you. We want to thank our Border Patrol for what they're doing. May God bless our Border Patrol agents, and God bless this great country we call America. Thank you.
Another proud Texan, senior Texas member, and former House Rules Committee chairman from Texas 17, Pete Sessions.
Jodey, thank you. Good morning. Today there's a story that's being told. As members of Congress from Texas, it is our job and responsibility to represent not just the people and the communities, but also our nation. The story that's being told today is one that the Biden administration and Democrats in Congress have ignored, and that is the rule of law and the ability that we have to protect American citizens. Families all across this country are seeing firsthand as there are deaths in their neighborhoods, in their schools, and in their families. We are going to bring to bear today and forward as we move to January the 3rd, ideas that will give this nation not only the view that we will fight to save ourselves, but that we will bring back the things that have protected America for so long. And that is federal law enforcement that has the idea that they are there to serve and protect. We stand with federal law enforcement. We stand with the Border Patrol, and the Texas delegation, the Republicans to a person, are going to get this done in the coming year. Thank you for being here and helping us tell the story.
In the interest of time, Texas 4, former Fighting Irish football player Pat Fallon.
Keep your seats. You know, border security shouldn't be a partisan issue. The safety of our country and Americans shouldn't be a partisan issue, but apparently it is. Look at the tail of the tape. There were 234,000 illegal border crossings this April, which was the worst we've ever had in our history in a month. 1,258% worse than the last April President Trump had been in office. And then it was eclipsed the very next month with 241,000 illegal border crossings. 930% worse than the last May President Trump was in office. So it's fair to say, empirically, that it's about 10 times worse than it was then. And then you talk about fentanyl. There were 107,000 deaths last year. And my colleague Jake Elsie pointed out, this is asymmetrical warfare. 80,000 due to fentanyl. We lost 297 Americans per day during World War II, lost 293 of them last year. And Joe Biden doesn't have the guts when he talks to Xi Jinping to bring up fentanyl, because most of it's made in China. We lost nearly 3,000 Americans in 9/11, and we mobilized as a country and united like never before. And yet, we lost 27 times that, just to fentanyl last year, and we have a political party that wants to ignore it. So this plan, as Chip Roy said, is a solution to a grave problem, and it's not a crisis, it's a catastrophe. And it's time this administration and the Democrats woke up. Thank you very much, and God bless Texas.
From Congressional District in Texas 14, Randy Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I was in the Texas legislature in 2011, I was the vice chairman of the Borders Committee. Back then, we were told by the DPS 5,000 Texans had been robbed, raped, violently beat, cars stolen, houses burglarized, women some killed, some of them murdered by people who were not even supposed to be in Texas. That's 5,000 in 1 year, 2011. So what is that? Not quite two a day. Today we've got 300 a day being killed by fentanyl. and the president doesn't care. You're the press. Every time you see this president, you should say, Mr. President, what about the 300 Americans that are dying every day? It's time, Mr. President, to secure the border.
From Texas, 27th District, Michael Cloud.
My district in Texas is, along with the law enforcement, calls the fatal funnel. Just last week, we had the largest seizure of liquid fentanyl in our country. This administration continues to aid and abet these cartels in this activity, and it's horrific. We've talked about the tens of thousands of young people who've died in our country because of fentanyl. We can talk about the young women and men being trafficked into sex trafficking, into work relationships with these cartels. And instead of pushing back on this administration, instead of, for example, building the infrastructure, has used taxpayer dollars to spend more money to not build the infrastructure than build the infrastructure needed to help secure our border. They've turned our good men and women at the Border Patrol doing the best they can to secure our border. They've turned that apparatus into, instead of a security situation, into one that continues to traffic and to help and aid and abet cartels in getting this situation from our border in Texas throughout the country. We have to push back on this. Texas has come together with the solution to push back on this. It's time for this administration to act, to secure the border for the American people. Thank God for Texas leading on this. God bless America. God bless Texas.
From the epicenter of energy independence, my friend and our fellow Texan from Texas 11, August Blizzard.
Every Texan here that's standing with me has been to the border more times than Joe Biden, more times this year than the president has been in 47 plus years of government. That's a shame. We've got a political will problem in the ivory tower down on Pennsylvania Avenue. While he's serving state dinners and traveling abroad, he's ignoring communities in Del Rio, McAllen, Laredo, and throughout West Texas. He's ignoring the fact that we're being overrun by drugs. He's ignoring the 53 people that died needlessly in a tractor trailer in the July heat south of San Antonio. That's not compassionate. President Biden needs to go to the border. He needs to see the tragedy that is happening. He needs to understand the deaths caused by fentanyl. He needs to lead us out of this crisis that he has led us into. It's time that we stand up, and I'm proud to be a Texan, proud to be a part of this plan, and proud to get this country back on track by first and foremost securing our southern border. Thank you.
Jeff Van Dyne from Texas 24.
Under the Trump administration, Texas sold land to the federal government with the idea that that land was going to be used to build a wall. I have had countless letters that have been ignored by this administration trying to get that land back. Under the previous administration, hundreds of millions of dollars were spent on materials to build a wall. That material is currently rotting. I've introduced legislation to try to get that material back because Texas is willing to fight to protect our country. Under the Biden administration, they would prefer to send hundreds of millions of dollars to Central America for their refugee problem instead of sending it to our border for the help that we desperately need down there. I've introduced legislation that would actually handle that and redirect those funds to where it's needed most at the border. All of these pieces of legislation have gone nowhere because Democrats refuse to bring them out of committee and vote on them. Every single member behind me has either sponsored, co-sponsored, or supported actual solutions, plans, policies, bills that would address the current human crisis, financial crisis, and national security crisis that we had at the border. It is absolutely time that we stop seeing children die unnecessarily in our schools. We have to stop the loss of life from our border protection officers that are needlessly taking their own lives because of stress that they're facing. And it's time that we stop empowering our drug cartels and our gang operators at the risk of U.S. lives. It's time that Democrats stop talking as if this is a bipartisan issue and actually start voting like it.
We have a fabulous 5 new members of the Texas delegation, and one has to go to a meeting. Keith Self, would you come up here and give us some remarks? Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to be a freshman on January the 3rd. I was the county judge in Collin County north of Dallas. Years ago, we were dealing with this issue. It is much worse today. I was on the border twice during my campaign. The first in the middle of the night watching the Cartel operation. The second in the El Paso sector, talking to Border Patrol agents, talking to landowners, the local sheriff. And I will tell you, I expected to see a broken system, but instead what I saw was a system that was intentionally not enforcing the laws of this nation and the sovereignty of the United States. When I joined this Congress and this Texas delegation, I expect to be working with every one of them on this issue in the U.S. Congress to make laws that will support and defend the sovereignty of the United States. Thank you very much.
Former Navy fighter pilot and proud native West Texan, Jake Elsey from Texas 6.
Thank y'all for being here. Whether we like it or not, politics is a team sport. You see a united team behind you that is fed up with the undeclared war against Americans. In World War II, we lost 418,600 Americans. Every day, that's 305 Americans fighting overseas to defend our liberty here. Last year alone, we lost 105,000 Americans to overdose. Two-thirds of that is from fentanyl. That number is 287 every day. If this were a war that was declared, we would be losing it. This is a war. The cartels have brought they are making more money trafficking in human beings than they are on drugs. They're responsible for this entire crisis, and it's the time we declared them a clear and present danger to the national security of the United States. This legislation is going to pass, and I look forward to seeing who votes no on this, and whether or not the president chooses to sign this or not. And then he needs to be held accountable as to why he wouldn't. This is about Americans. We're fed up with this. We're united as Texans. Let's get this thing pushed through, and I thank all the hard-working people behind us who have said enough is enough. We need to secure our nation. Thank you.
Well, this past year, Texans sent our first female Republican from the Rio Grande Valley, and we are so proud and honored to have her as part of the Texas delegation. She is indeed on the front lines of this self-inflicted disaster. Myra Flores from Texas 34.
Thank you. Buenos dias, Mayra Flores, proudly representing Texas 34. I want to thank you for being here today and thank my colleagues for standing in front of the U.S. Capitol today, united in our battle to secure our southern border. For many of us standing here today, the urgent need to secure our border is not just a talking point you see here in the news. It's a reality we live every single day in our districts, and we see the impact throughout our state. As a spouse of a Border Patrol agent, I can tell you that they need our help. I can tell you that there is no better group of people to help resolve the issues than the Texas Congressional Delegation. The Biden administration has stated that he doesn't care about South Texas, he doesn't care about the border crisis, that there is more important things. He is a disgrace, he should be ashamed of himself and resign. How many more lives do we have to lose? How many more Border Patrol agents do we have to lose? How many more migrants do we have to lose? He's made it harder for migrants to come into the United States legally, but has made it easier for people to come here to this country illegally. Knowing the dangers, knowing that women and children will be abused and raped. I have family in Tamaulipas that I can't visit because I am afraid. And I am not the only one in South Texas and in this country that we can't go to Mexico because we are afraid of the criminal organizations. That this president has made them more powerful. The criminal organizations have completely destroyed Tamaulipas, my home state that I love. My grandparents still live there. These are my families. The Mexican people also want peace. They don't want this president to continue doing what he's doing. He's hurting them as well. He's hurting the American people. We are sick and tired of it. We are sick and tired of it in South Texas. People see Border Patrol agents for the past weeks. But for every one of y'all, they're just Border Patrol agents. But for us, they're our friends. They're my husband's colleagues. I have never been afraid of my husband's life. He could be next. I have thought about it. What am I going to do? I have 4 kids. I can't do this alone. I need my husband. We need our husbands. We need our spouses. And we need the Biden administration to care for them. And I can't thank y'all enough. Thank you so much for leading on this. I want this president to resign and let the Texas delegation take care of it. Because obviously, he's not doing it. And I ask you to please, on the next congressional 2023, 2024, please think of us in South Texas. And let me tell you something. We have not lost a voice in South Texas because Monica de la Cruz is here. And she is here to stay. So South Texas did not lose a voice. We have Monica de la Cruz. And I am so proud of her. The impact that we made in Texas 34, I am forever proud of it. We are not going anywhere. Monica de la Cruz is not going anywhere. And I just want to say and ask y'all to stop making this political, because this is not about Democrat or Republican. This is an American issue. And I want the secure border for the American people, but also to keep immigrants safe. And also so people like myself can one day go to Mexico in peace to see my family. Thank you.
Hey, hold on, Mark. If you don't appreciate how fed up the people of South Texas are with the lawlessness and chaos at the border, I think you understand from the passion of these 2 ladies who are right there on the front lines. It's in their backyard. I don't think you need any further introduction. Monica de la Cruz from Texas 15.
Thank you. As a South Texas native, I am here today alongside and proudly alongside my fellow Texas colleagues. And thank you, Congresswoman Mayra Flores, of being a strong voice in Deep South Texas. Because you see, we are the community at the front lines. Well, President Biden has sat idly and watched our communities overrun, our resources strained, and our security risk. It is us in South Texas, McAllen, Texas, where we are having the brunt of this type of devastating policies that the Biden administration has put forward in his open border policy. And with our community suffering, it has been especially hard on our brave men and women in green. You see, in the Rio Grande Valley, we house the largest Border Patrol sector in the entire nation. These Border Patrol men and women, they are our friends. They are our family. They are our neighbors. We hear firsthand of not only the suffering that the immigrants have with the coyotes that bring them over and exploit them, but we also hear the stories of these Border Patrol agents who suffer devastating mental health. Just now, we are in an epidemic with our Border Patrol agents, where this mental health crisis has taken 14 of our Border Patrol agents. Just yesterday, we lost a Border Patrol agent. And let me tell you this. This Border Patrol agent died in the line of duty. He died for you and for me, for your children and for my children, and to keep us safe. Enough is enough. As my abuelita would say, ya fue mucho. Ya. We have had it. Texans are on the front line of this crisis, and we deserve better. You deserve better. This is an open border crisis caused by the Biden administration. And let me tell you, President Biden, there is nothing compassionate about a border that is open. It's dangerous for immigrants, and it is bad for our communities. This is why we stand committed to securing our southern border and getting our Border Patrol agents the resources that they need. Our community in South Texas is suffering. We are suffering with the loss of our Border Patrol agents, and we mourn with you and the Gonzalez family. Our community is in pain, and we must take action. I thank again my colleagues from Texas who are standing courageously at the front line. May God bless Texas, and may God bless America.
She's right. Texans feel abandoned by their government, as they should. And if you don't think Texans are trying to send a message, and people who will bring the fight to the source of the problem, which is our lawless and derelict president, well, if you don't believe her, believe our next fellow member of the Texas Delegation, one of our newest members, Navy SEAL combat veteran Morgan Luttrell from Texas 8.
I'll say this. Our country has always been great about rushing to the aid of our family and friends overseas, Iraq, Afghanistan, Ukraine now. You have the voice of the Texas people standing behind you, begging this government to come save us. And nothing is being done. Nothing. I've spoken with spouses whose loved ones died defending this country, and they're in fear of their lives in the state of Texas. Think of that. We have a president that is in such cognitive decline, he probably doesn't know where the state of Texas is. We have a border czar who can't define security, and we have a Secretary of Homeland Security that doesn't show up for work. January 3rd, be ready. Thank you.
Amen. Well, we've got the senior doctor in the house, from Texas 26, Michael Burgess.
Thank you, Jody. And I just have to say this. I mean, I've been here for a while, multiple trips down to the border. It has never been this bad. And the really bad news is it's fixing to get a lot worse when they eliminate Title 42. But I've also never seen the Texas delegation so united on this issue. So thank you, Jody, for putting this together. Thank you for the work, the body of work that you've done, assembling all the legislative pieces that colleagues from across Texas have put together. We have the plan. If the administration won't solve this, we will. Thank you.
We'll end like we started. This is our commitment to America. This is our plan for Texas. And this is our solemn pledge to our fellow Texans. So with that, we're happy to entertain any questions that you might have for us this morning. Yes, ma'am. I should say my colleagues are happy to take any questions from you. Come up here, Dean.
Framework in the Senate with Senator Tillis and Sinema, and is there support in this group for amnesty for DACA recipients?
Look, this is the focus of this framework is on border security, and I know we took painstaking efforts to engage our Senate colleagues, the leadership of the House, our fellow law enforcement and Border Patrol agents. So this is well coordinated with all stakeholders, and we're here to speak as one voice for the great state of Texas and for the freedom-loving people of Texas. And they expect us to lead on this, and that's exactly what we aim to do. And with the new powers and authorities in this Republican majority, we are going to do everything, as I said, in our power to make sure we change the posture and policies that are in place today, which have created this chaos. So yeah, sure.
Yeah, I just want to add, like, I've been around this topic for a long time, working for Senator Cornyn, working for Senator Cruz. What you just asked is what always happens in this town, right? People run to go do gangs of fill in the blank, to go cut some deals ahead of time. We need to restore regular order in this place and start with the ways that we can actually solve the problem. This plan is brought forward to be, as Jodey said, specific to border security, right? We know we need to deal with immigration issues, but we need to secure the border right now for the reasons that everybody just articulated. And we need to get y'all to get your head wrapped around that our border is wide open and people are getting hurt. So we very specifically and very clearly laid out a border security specific plan. And we're focusing on that for a reason. And it's purposeful.
I want to say something really quick about DACA. You know, y'all have had the president and the majority. Why don't you ask them? Y'all keep using this issue with Hispanics just to get our support, just to get our vote. And you've done nothing. You've had an opportunity to do something about DACA, and you've done nothing. You've made the border worse. Go and ask them why they haven't done anything. They have the president, they've had the majority. Y apenas se están acordando, now y'all are remembering about DACA. Why weren't y'all talking about DACA 2 years ago? Stop using this issue. Stop using us to get our vote, and then you toss us aside. That's exactly what the Democrat Party has been doing. They only remember about us and the issues that we care during election. They're on their way out, and all of a sudden, they want to fight DACA. Why didn't they fight it whenever they could? Hipócritas.
One more context on the DACA. One more context, though, on DACA. When President Trump, who was totally committed to the first job and most important responsibility of a commander-in-chief, to provide for a common defense, when he was asked to consider in his comprehensive border security plan that we put on the House floor, it included DACA, legal status for DACA. Not one Democrat supported it. Not one Democrat supported it. Our commitment is to provide for the common defense and the safety and security against the most imminent threat, which is the crisis that's been created by this administration. Next question. Hold on, we'll go here and here.
Has there been conversation about this specific policy with Democratic leadership in the Senate? Have you been given any indication that they'd be willing to pass it?
I think the Democrat senators are well aware of the policies that were effective in the previous administration that brought illegal immigration down by over 70% and effectively secured the border. So I don't think that our colleagues in the upper chamber are unaware or unclear about those policies. But here's what I do know. Many of those folks in the upper chamber, and certainly our Democrat colleagues, have not demonstrated any political courage to actually implement those effective policies so we can have the outcome of a safer America.
Ask the senators that question.
And as my colleague mentioned, Randy Weber, I think that's a good question for the senators to answer themselves. But I think the answer is plain and clear to every American. They haven't supported it, and if they do support it, they haven't acted on it. And that's why Texans are going to lead the way to force this issue and to force the political will and action in Congress and with our president.
Congressman, I'm Mark Tapscott with the Epoch Times. I'm a native Texan.
God bless you, sir.
My question is this. The projections of 13 million additional immigrants coming in when Title 42 expired. What's that going to do to Texas? What's it going to look like?
It's going to change Texas forever. It's changing our country, and that's why there's got to be the greatest sense of urgency. And look, this is Texas unified on a plan that will work and that has worked. We also know that our governor and state leaders are doing everything in their power. We understand the Constitution empowers states when the federal government fails to protect them, when they are in imminent danger, to use the words of the Constitution. Those states have the right of self-defense, and Texas ought to exercise that, and in fact they are, and this is also our way to affirm that right of self-defense.
It's also noteworthy that the Biden administration is now appealing the Title 42 ruling, yet they were out saying they, quote, have a plan. They get the joke, and as our friends from Border Patrol could illuminate, they understand what happens if Title 42 goes away, because it's literally the only tool that they're using to turn away and deal with the crisis at the border. They know they can't process 17,000 people a day. So they're in court appealing it because they know it won't work and it'll cause utter devastation.
Mark, Randy Weber, Texas. I was on the board, the Texas House for 4 years, and I was on the Public Education Committee, K through 12. If the average school district, to your point, how does it affect Texas? If the average school district in Texas is 10,000 kids, K through 12, when 70,000 unaccompanied minors were brought in one summer ago, you just brought into Texas 7 complete school districts that somebody has to pay to educate. There has to be buildings, there have to be teachers, there have to be administrators, all kinds of programs. Is it affecting Texas? You better believe it, Mark.
Mark, it's overwhelming, really. And it's every facet of our community and our society. I mean, the hospitals are overrun, the schools are overrun, our law enforcement are overrun, and they're getting no help from their federal government, who's responsible for border security and the defense of our citizens. So it is, to your point, completely unsustainable, which is why we're stepping up today in anticipation of our Republican majority and saying every power from the purse to investigation and, if and when appropriate, impeachment, so that we can get our colleagues in Washington to have the same sense of urgency that our fellow Texans have. Last question.
Do you or anyone in this group believe they've already seen evidence of enforcement from bureaucracies?
Well, listen, I think it's pretty evident to folks that this president is derelict in his sacred duty to enforce the laws. And I think his accomplice, Secretary Mayorkas, it's equally evident. But we're not Democrats. We believe in due process, and we're going to let the process play out. But we're going to vigorously apply our oversight and the accountability that's been lacking for 2 years. And that's going to start, as my colleague Morgan Luttrell said, day one, January 3rd. And that's what the people expect, and that's what should be expected in this constitutional republic in our great country. God bless. And last word from Dan Crenshaw, our next Homeland Security Chair.
So I was just on that. I absolutely agree with what Jody said. We're going to do our due process, but we actually have a plan for that. If I'm elected chair, I have a long list of names from the transition team that need to be deposed, that need to be questioned, because we are going to get to the bottom of this, but we're not going to say you're guilty and then try to prove it. That's not how our justice system works. So I'm with Kevin McCarthy for calling on Mayorkas to resign, just based on pure incompetence. Now we're going to see if he'll do that, and he probably won't. So now we'll look to what the truth is and what the facts are.
Hey, on behalf of the delegation, thank you guys for your interest, and thanks for covering the press conference today. God bless.
Good job. All right. Good job. You did great. You're awesome. Good job. No, that was good.